Hi, everyone. My name is Jesse Robbins, and welcome to LPLE from Dialogue FM. We're the podcast that lets you practice listening in English. We speak English slowly and clearly so that you can follow along and understand native English speakers more easily. I'm excited to help you improve your English listening skill, as well as help you learn new vocabulary, grammar, and idioms commonly heard in conversations among native English speakers. If you want to practice listening in English, then we invite you to join our conversation. Hi, Jane.
Hi, Jesse.
You know, as language learners like yourself and myself, I bet one thing we have in common is having a language partner. So for me, in order to maintain my skill in Vietnamese and in Japanese, I have different language partners. I have one Vietnamese language partner who I meet twice a week on Skype. She lives in Vietnam. I live here in Seattle. So we schedule time to talk twice a week and practice English and Vietnamese. And then I have a Japanese language partner who I meet once a week for 2 hours. Yeah.
Face-to-face or?
Face-to-face, exactly. Because of these language partners, I'm still able to think in these two languages. At the same time, I'm also able to learn new vocabularies. So I figured for this conversation, we could talk about our experiences with language partners, what works for me, what works for you, and then give our listeners some ideas on how they can find a language partner and what they can do to make sure that they learn the most they can from those partnerships. So I'd love to learn from your experiences. I mean, you've mastered French and you feel very comfortable speaking in French. I'd love to hear how you found a language partner.
Actually, I never really looked for a language partner. I learned French in quite a traditional way. I think I started in junior high school, college, graduate school. Then I moved to France. And I did marry someone who was not French, but the only common language we had was French. So there was a ready-made language partner. It made a huge difference because even though my husband's first language was not French, he grew up hearing it and his French was excellent and completely fluent, and he conducted his entire life in French. Since I left France, it has not always been so easy, and thanks to cheap telephone calls and Skype and so on, I have been able to keep up relationships with friends, and I speak maybe once or twice a month for a couple of hours with a French friend who speaks very good English, but she very generously speaks French with me so that I can hear. The thing that makes this work is that it's a friendship that just happens to be conducted in French. And that has made a difference for me. I know that when I tried to learn Romanian, I looked for someone, and my Romanian simply wasn't good enough. And the person who I wanted for a partner was just a very nice Romanian person. They were not a teacher. And they certainly tried, but for me, that didn't work. I should have been with an actual teacher. So I think there's the place where you have to be careful. I think it has to be, you have to have some things in common with the person so that you're actually talking about real things, so that you enjoy the time together. And I think there has to be a pretty good level of conversation ability before you do this. Otherwise, the person who's your partner might lose patience, or you're afraid to bother them.
I 100% agree. The skill level should be the equivalent of maybe studying French for 2 years in school. By then, I assume that you will have collected enough grammar and vocabulary in order to have a very simple, yet still common conversation.
Yes, a real conversation.
Right.
Yes.
It could
yes.
be about the weather or your hobbies or your family. These are very common topics that we learn within the first 2 years of learning a foreign language. So after that, you're probably at a good level to interact in that language. Now, to your point, the expectation of a language partner being a teacher is dangerous.
Yes.
Yeah. So for you, right? I mean, your French friend with whom you speak French to, that person's not your teacher.
That's right. She's my friend. She is very interested in English and speaks it well herself. So, for example, when we're talking, I can say, I'm not sure you have this expression in French. I give it to her in English. She laughs because she's never heard it before or something. So the fact that we can switch language if we need to is actually very helpful. I think only once tried to set up an exchange. And for me, it didn't work very well, but I think the reason was because the levels of language were not high enough. Or I'm thinking it could also be because one had quite high level and the other was lower, and it just didn't work.
In my particular case, which it sounds a little bit different from yours.
Yes, I think so.
Yours was a very informal conversation in French based on a friendship that you already had.
That's correct. Yeah. Yes, a big difference.
For about, we're in 2016, so I would say for about 15 years since I was a student at the University of Washington, I had signed up for a formal language partner through the University of Washington Language Exchange Program. In this program, I would submit my name, my location, where I live, my studies, what am I studying? At the time, I was studying business, as well as my hobbies. And the program would find a Japanese student from Japan who has similar interest and match us. Right? Mm-hmm. And then the program would give guidelines on how to have a beneficial, productive, and successful language exchange relationship. So in my case, my language partners didn't start out as friends. We started out as just people wanting to practice another language. Now, of course, more often than not, my language partner would become my friend.
Yes.
But in other situations, we just didn't really have much in common, and so we didn't meet more than a few times.
So that is an important thing, that there's, even if there isn't a pre-existing friendship, there needs to be enough there so that there could be a friendship. It's true, I think, just spending time talking. We want to spend our time talking in a way that makes us happy and comfortable. And life is short, and you might as well spend it with people that you are at ease with. So could you tell me what some of those guidelines were?
Certainly. After having a language partner for 15 years, having 15 years of experience doing this, I'm actually able to find my own language partners outside of this University of Washington program, because I believe I've created my own guidelines for success. So the first one is, I feel as though I need to have a language partner who is around my age or older. Okay, so I'm 35 years old. Mm-hmm. So sometimes having a language partner who's much younger may not be as helpful because, again, it goes back to having things in common. I have different life experiences than the person who might be 18, 19, or 20 years old studying at the local community college. So the first thing is accepting the fact that having somebody around my age or older would be really helpful. Okay, that's the first one. The second one is learning how to find things in common. So being comfortable asking basic questions like, do you like taking pictures, or do you like cooking, or do you like traveling? Do you like singing karaoke, which is a very common activity and pastime for some of my Japanese and Vietnamese friends. I'd say another important trait and thing for success is being comfortable with my level of Japanese and Vietnamese and asking for help when I don't know. See, I think one of the biggest challenges for people learning a foreign language, especially for the first time, is they're afraid to say, I don't know.
Yes.
Right? So saying, oh, I'm sorry, could you repeat that? Or saying, what does that word mean? It feels embarrassing at first. However, again, I've been doing this for 15 years. I'm used to it.
Yes.
And I recognize that in order to have a successful language partner relationship, I need to ask, could you please tell me this word? Now, I also tell my partners that I'm not a teacher. That is not my job. And I am not their teacher. I want to be a good partner and hopefully even be their friend. I can probably even help them with homework sometimes.
Uh-huh.
Right. But I cannot be a teacher. I will not create homework for them or take the role of a teacher by always having to teach them new words.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do you work out the exchange? So is it 1 hour with you speaking Japanese and 1 hour with them speaking English? Is it more or less that? How do you
great.
break it? How do you decide to stop?
Well, that is a fantastic question. I'm going to say that it depends. So I'll explain what I do now, but I'll also explain what I think people should do if they are starting a language partnership for the first time. So for what I do, with my Vietnamese language partner, we only meet 1 hour per meeting. The first 30 minutes are 100% in English.
Okay.
Yep. If she, my language partner, does not know a word, I will not give her the word in Vietnamese. I will explain it in English.
Okay.
And then the remaining 30 minutes is the same thing in Vietnamese. Okay. We respect the timer. So when we reach 30 minutes, we switch.
Okay. And do you both have your eye on the clock so that you don't find yourself involved in a conversation that you can't finish? Or do you just switch the conversation into Vietnamese and continue?
It's the latter. We switched the conversation into Vietnamese.
And just continue talking about the same topic.
Exactly. Now, let's say we're talking about a complex topic. Then it's going to be more challenging for me because if we're talking about law, which we have been recently, then I just have to be comfortable asking lots of questions or just saying, I don't know how to continue the conversation in Vietnamese, but I have another story I want to share with you. And then I go into another story that I think I can explain in Vietnamese. So that's my Vietnamese language partner. For my Japanese language partner, because we meet for 2 hours, we do 30 minutes English, 30 minutes Japanese, 30 minutes English, 30 minutes Japanese.
Ah, that's kind of good exercise for the brain, I should think.
Yeah. Now, the challenge is we're also drinking beer.
Ah,
So
that helps, doesn't it?
it could help. It depends on how much you drink. But usually we have finished but 1 or 2 beers together. So for the second half, sometimes we mix the time and it gets really relaxed. But usually we do 30 minutes, 30 minutes, 30 minutes, and then 30 minutes. Now, I don't recommend that if you are starting a language exchange partnership for the first time. What I do recommend is if you meet for, let's say, 30 minutes, I encourage both people to challenge themselves to talk for only 5-minute sections.
Ah, and just keep switching every 5 minutes. That's a very good idea.
Yeah. Because part of the problem for people learning a foreign language is you're using your brain so much.
That's right.
Right? So I give the example of, imagine you are solving a math problem for 30 minutes straight. That's how your brain is working. Yeah, you're tired, right? So we have to remember that we have to exercise our brain and we have to exercise our mouth. So starting with 5 minutes in English, 5 minutes in French, 5 minutes in English, and switching back and forth, that will help build some stamina.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then later you can do 10 minutes, 10 minutes, and then 15 minutes, and then move up to longer time.
Longer periods. That's excellent. How did you find your partners?
It's a great question, too. Well, before, I would use the University of Washington Language Exchange Program.
Right.
Now, as an alumni, I can still sign up for a Japanese language partner, maybe even a Chinese language partner. For my Vietnamese language partners, it's a little bit more difficult to find a language partner. So, for my current language partner in Vietnam, we met through a website called conversationexchange.com. Really simple sounding website.
Yes.
So I created a profile and I explained my goals clearly. And I also made it clear that I am not looking for a relationship. I'm not using this website to find a girlfriend or a wife.
Right.
I'm a serious student. I'm a serious person wanting to study Vietnamese. And I received a number of replies. I talked to a couple of them, and I decided to commit my time to one person. I've been speaking with her for over 1 year now.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, from my Japanese language partner now, I met him through a friend, my old Japanese language partner who went back to Japan.
Uh-huh.
So he said, I want you to continue practicing Japanese. Could you help my coworker who's coming to Seattle to study his MBA? That's great because I have an MBA.
That's true.
Right?
That's true.
We
yeah.
have something in common. And he's older. He's, I think, in his mid-40s. He has a wife and 2 children. So we can exchange life stories and share experiences. So that's how I met my Japanese language partner. For those listening in different countries, I would recommend going online to conversationexchange.com or even downloading some mobile applications to help yourself find a language partner. There are many people all over the world who want to practice English, and they could be helpful. Thank you for listening to this episode of LPLE. Let's practice listening in English from Dialogue FM. Subscribe to LPLE on iTunes to hear the latest episodes, or listen to past episodes on our website, dialogue.fm. That's dialog.fm. If you have questions or comments about English, or if you would like for us to use a word, grammar, or idiom in our conversation so you can learn how to use it correctly, we would love to hear from you on Twitter at dialogue.fm or Facebook at facebook.com/dialoguefm.